Wrong, wrong, wrong. I have seen so many mistakes being talked about recently in the marketing world. Over the last 10 years, I've generated hundreds of thousands of leads and tens of millions of dollars worth of sales. And I want to share with you, what have I noticed that people talk about as though it's an absolute fact, but my experience is completely the opposite. I'm going to share with you the 5 mistakes that I'm seeing in the marketing world right now. Mistake number 1 is quality over quantity. People talk about this as though it's religion. You need quality leads, not quantity of leads. Let me tell you the truth. You need a quantity of leads. You need to be drowning in leads. You need more than enough leads. The truth is that finding a great client is a needle in a haystack, but first you need the haystack. So you've actually got to have plenty of leads. Now, let me give you an example. Glastonbury Music Festival, every single year they register 700,000 people who say that they want a ticket, but then they make those tickets go live and only have 136,000 tickets available. The thing that makes them sell out in 35 minutes is the fact that they have 700,000 people who registered and 136,000 tickets available. They focus on a quantity of people who have registered relative to the quality of people who are going to buy a ticket. So one of the things that I see happening all the time is that you generate just enough leads. You get just enough leads. You're focusing on quality over quantity, and there's no demand and supply tension. People can't see the buzz around you, and therefore they don't assume that you're in demand. See, when we see a business that has a buzz around it, that's actually the quantity of people talking about something, not the quality of people talking about things as well. If you take an example that I saw recently, a business coach who only needed 10 clients went and spoke in front of an audience of over 300 CEOs and immediately signed up those 10 clients. So what really happened there is that there was the quantity first, and then the quality emerged as a result. Now, what you do need is you need something that will generate a quantity of leads. So that's a good lead magnet. That's a good, like an online assessment or a webinar or something that allows a scalable number of leads to come in. Then you need something that qualifies your leads. You need a way of asking questions so you can tell the needle from the haystack. You need to be able to find those quality clients within the quantity. So I want you to focus on quantity first, get too many leads, get drowning in leads, and then have a qualifying question, a way of qualifying people through the marketing process so that you can identify the quality out of the quantity. Mistake number 2 is nurture sequences. People talk about nurture sequences as though it's a religion, as though it's this magical thing that produces sales. And I've seen the opposite. I've seen companies that have a lot of energy going into their nurture sequences. They get a tiny trickle of people who come through from their nurture sequences. The majority of people come through immediately and fast when you solve a problem that they're currently frustrated by. So my experience is that for many, many years, for decades, I didn't do nurture sequences. What I did is I focused on identifying the problem or the frustration that people were experiencing, and then showing people specifically and explicitly how my business can solve that frustrating problem. And we would present that to them in a webinar, or we'd present that to them in a sales meeting, or we'd present that to them in a report, and we'd say, this is the problem that you have, and this is how we would solve that problem. And then very rapidly, within a few weeks, people would buy. Now, it is true that you can get a long tail effect. You can get a burst of sales when you focus on the problem and solving the problem. And then, yes, you can get a long tail, a trickle in of sales after that if you've got a nurture sequence or something that nurtures people. But here's the thing, I see people focusing on the trickle rather than the boom. You want to get the boom of sales. And the only way to get that boom of sales is to be explicit. This is the problem that you face, and here's how we solve that problem. The more you can be clear about that, the more you're going to get people buying straight away. They're not going to take forever. People actually don't like taking forever. They like to identify a problem and get it solved within their budget. And if you can tick all the boxes, you're going to get sales very, very rapidly. You should be able to make sales within like a week or 2 weeks from identifying the problem, presenting the solution, getting people to allocate the budget, give them a little bit of time, but it shouldn't take years to make a sale. So nurture sequences are great once your business is up and running and you've got plenty of data flowing through and you want to pick up those trailing sales 6 months, 12 months, 24 months into the future. Maybe people go through a bit of a buying cycle, but for many of you, you're not focusing heavily enough on the boom where you get rapid sales coming in straight away. Okay, the third thing that I'm hearing a lot is people testing with ads, where they say, oh, run some test campaigns with ads, get some Facebook ads running, test what works, test what doesn't work. Truth is that I run testing ads and they cost thousands and thousands of dollars. In many cases, to test a series of headlines or value propositions or offers, you've got to be spending something like $2,000 to $4,000 on ads just to test a few different ideas. A lot of businesses don't have $2,000 to $4,000 to test with ads. So I personally wouldn't do that with a brand new business. I will do that once I've got a 7-figure business and we already know a lot about our customer and we know a lot about why they buy. That is definitely something I do further along down the journey. But in the early days, under $1 million of revenue, I'm testing with DMs. So what I'm doing is sending direct messages to people, 100 a day, and I'm trying different headlines, different hooks, different offers, and I'm engaging people in conversation. So I'm like using a headline and I'm asking people questions and I'm trying to talk to them and I'm trying to figure out what makes them tick, and I'm doing that through the DM process. It's time consuming, it's frustrating, it takes up so much of your energy and your time and creativity, but out of that process emerges a clear understanding of what makes your customer tick. So DMs are way more valuable than Facebook ads or different ad strategies, and also it's free. So there's a DM that I always send out that works really, really well, and it follows this format. And the format is, I did something special with a certain type of client, we got a measurable result, and I can explain it step by step. Would you like to know more about that? And basically, I'm not saying that exactly that sentence, I'm saying a sentence that follows that pattern, right? So use that as a framework, and then you craft a little story that meets that sentence, and then would you like to know more about that? And then you start a conversation with people and ask them whether they're interested and what they're interested about, what's their current situation, what's their desired situation, what problems have they faced in the past, what's their preferred option for solving this, right? So you enter into the conversation. So I'm a big believer that you should probably send the first 3,000 DMs in the first 30 days and then start conversations and see what people are responding to before you then go on and test some ads. The next one I see really regularly, and this is from even experienced businesses and startup businesses that have raised money and have got an investor, and that is that they create a marketing budget. A marketing budget is a terrible idea. You should definitely not have a marketing budget. A marketing budget is where you say, oh, we're gonna spend 50 grand on marketing this year or 100 grand on marketing this year. And that is a recipe for just burning money, wasting money. It's a terrible, terrible way to think about marketing. Your marketing should only be expressed as an allowable cost per sale or an allowable cost per lead. So let's say you sell something that's $5,000 and you're happy to spend 10% on marketing in order to get a sale. You should be saying, okay, our allowable cost per sale is $500 per sale for our ads or our other marketing expenses. Now, if you know that 1 in 10 people buy from your lead to conversion ratio, you can say we can spend $50 per lead because we're confident that $50 leads convert into $500 per sale, converts into a $5,000 sale. So if you can figure out the allowable cost per lead or the allowable cost per sale, then you have an infinite marketing budget. You can spend as much as you want. So all of the businesses that I've run where we've taken off, where we've done millions in our first year or tens of millions after that, it's always based on allowable cost per lead, allowable cost per sale, and an infinite marketing budget provided we stay within those guardrails. Okay, mistake number 5 is all about building a brand. I do not think you should be building a brand. I don't think it's possible to build a brand in the early days. Brand comes later. Building a brand is something that is incredibly difficult and expensive and irrelevant really when you're in an early stage business. The only thing you should be focused on for building a brand is making sales. So how are you going to get people to love what you do? They're going to buy what you do. So you're going to be sales focused, not brand building focused. The truth is that people are so distracted these days. They're seeing hundreds of different messages every single day that they're not going to remember you long enough to build a brand. What they want to do is identify that you have named the problem or frustration that they're experiencing. You've named the solution that you offer. It's a good fit between problem and solution, and that they are now able to take action through a call to action and start the process of buying that. So rather than thinking about brand building, think about calls to action. Can you get someone to fill in a form? Can you get them to fill in an online assessment? Can you get them to register for a workshop? So all that matters is calls to action. Call to action is anything where you get someone to take some sort of an action, whether it's free or paid. You're going to say in the beginning, call to action is do this thing by filling in a form and becoming a lead, and then talk to our sales team, see our presentation, and then buy the thing. Now, once you get lots of people who buy the thing, then you eventually look after people and you start to build a brand. So the brand is going to happen over time and distance. The longer you've been in business, the more you'll have a brand that kind of like catches up. But in the early days especially, you just want to be focused on calls to action and making sales. The pushback that I get on this is that people want to buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And that is true, right? That does actually happen, but you can build the know, like, and trust into your sales process. The truth is that people discover new stuff all the time, and they love discovering new stuff all the time. People get to know, like, and trust based upon your credentials, your background, your sharing of your story, the content that you put out there that leads people through the process of buying. People really trust people who are good at diagnosing a problem and recommending the right solution that fits. So you've probably bought rapidly in the past. You've probably seen something that you like and you go, hey, I've never heard of that before, but I'm willing to buy it because it's a good fit. Other people are the same as well. Now, the truth is that the more you focus on making sales, you will get some people who buy. Some people take a little longer to get to know you, like you, and trust you, but eventually they buy faster if you're focused on sales and calls to action as opposed to brand building. The problem that you face today is that it's a noisy marketplace. It's very, very easy to get drowned out in all that noise, and you'll never build a brand if you're playing the long game. You'll run out of money before you end up playing the long game. So I want you to just focus on calls to action and sales. Okay, one of the best calls to action you could possibly give, which helps people to identify their problem and the solution, is an online assessment. Imagine you walk into a doctor's office and they say, oh, I want to put your arm in a cast. You'd say, what on earth are you talking about? They say, well, that's what I get paid for. I love putting arms in casts because I get a commission for that. You would just walk straight out of there and probably sue them for negligence. A doctor would never recommend a solution unless they first recommended an assessment or a test. So what you want to do is get people to fill in an online assessment so that they can self-diagnose what is their problem, and then you can make the recommendation to the solution. This is a super powerful thing for anyone who sells services like consultants and coaches, or you've got an agency, or you've got a B2B SaaS business. Anything that is solutions orientated, sell this assessment, sell the scorecard, and then sell the solution. You can set up a free account on ScoreApp.com if you haven't done so already. You can look at our 150 plus templates that are freely available, and you can get an assessment set up in less than an hour. If you haven't done so already, check it out, ScoreApp.com. Also, give this channel a like and a subscribe, leave me a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you soon.